Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get pre-orders of all the upcoming Force of Will sets, as well as releases of previous sets after they come out. TCGprime.com with over 100,000 Force of Will singles, as well as out-of-print boxes from the past, and TCG accessories, as well as FowlLibrary.com, a wonderful resource for deck lists, article discussions, and more. Check them out at FowlLibrary.com, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer patrons Shukong Fu, Vite Ramen, and Maxime Van He. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey, the Rulers, Demo73 here, bringing you a featured match with Paul on Blue Fox, trying to take on Dark Tree, Yggdrasil 2.0. Before we get started, I do want to say that Odyssey Games does have their pre-orders for Hero Cluster Set 1, as well as the starter decks available. You can check the link in the description below to pick those up. And they do actually have a special going on the starter decks, where if you get both starter decks, you get a couple bucks off. So go check them out, show them some love, and be ready for next cluster when it drops. So Blue Fox is gotten some interesting tools over the course of the years to just be able to facilitate this idea of one-card chimeras. For a very long time, that was kind of the whole gimmick of Fox, was how many different ways we can play one card and use it to get a second creature so that we can get two-card chimera to get another chimera. There's a lot of new tools to be able to do that, as well as good protection tools for things to be able to avoid things like Faerer Spell or Lorite, something that was used well against Fox, especially Lorite. Things like Setting the Stage of Providence is very, very helpful, as well as other ways to cheat bodies in that don't require us to cast cards, which you'll see as we go through. And Dark Tree is Dark Tree. It has a lot of cool tools to be able to facilitate getting very large bodies out early, making use of the fact that it does not have to care about its life total. So using its life total as a resource. There's just all kinds of cool tools that can be used here to facilitate acceleration, probably more of aggressive, and based on how the strategy goes, you can, if your opponent doesn't have an out to it, you can just go infinite with it, never die. So we have this first here, we have our first card, it's Dracula from Rebirth of Legend. This card is excellent because every single time it's going to get killed, your opponent gets to, or gets sent to the graveyard for any reason, it just starts coming back. So you can sacrifice it to a chimera, and then at the end of the turn it'll come back, and so then you can turn that chimera into another chimera if you want. There's all kinds of different options here. First turn coming down for Dark Tree, we're going to see a coin and stone for Blessing of Yggdrasil. This is probably going to go get Ragnarok's Fiery Stone. Comes into play tapped, so we're accepting that we're going to have a turn where we're probably going to get some of our deck milled. But against a Blue Fox deck, this isn't particularly concerning, especially since that first stone wasn't a killing stone. So he's going to have to call stone at least one more time, and so we're pretty safe at that point. And now we don't have to worry about tapping Dark Tree to be able to get stones, which is helpful when we want to be bringing cheating cards back in from the RFG using its tap ability. So Paul's like, I'm thinking about swinging in, and then I'm like, wait a minute, no, I'm gonna make you have to draw your cards, which is kind of a good approach against Dark Tree. You want to make them have to burn their own resources on their own turn to accelerate their game plan. You don't want to help them. Especially, we've gotten some new cards that, when revealed off of the top of the deck, or when RFG'd off the top of the deck, can do some pretty crazy stuff. Which is why we have cards like Tisiphone. So Tisiphone, 2 black, 0/0, that he declares how much damage he wants to try to do to himself, or he declares a number of 3,000 or less, and then you on enter trigger, that's her stat line, and on enter trigger deal damage equal to her attack to yourself. So for Dark Tree, that's essentially pay 2, get a 3 grand, and mill 30 cards, which is pretty huge. So we're going to see a Lorite come down here to stop the self-damaging effect. It does just get to come down as a 3 grand, like he can't stop that, but she doesn't have any keywords, so she's just a body at that point, so not particularly concerning. And now you see Paul does have a green card and a black card, so next turn I imagine we start to see a Chimera come into play. A little bit interesting, we do have a green redstone to deal with, the Magic Stone of Reincarnation, so it'll be interesting to see if there is that Lorite, or maybe we see a Setting the Stage of Providence pre-recovery to be able to protect the turn. paying 2 blue, and yep, there it is. Setting the Stage of Providence, coming down pre-upkeep. This essentially means that no canceling me for a turn. This is a really good option for Fox to be able to start making those plays early without having to be as concerned about untapped will. Also draws a card, so the fact that it cantrips is nice. So now we can just Judgment here, swing with the Dracula, and go straight into a Griffin, and safely get additional stones here, not have to worry about missing the stone call. Do you see that flipped 9-tailed fox? Floating some will from that killing stone because it's going to go away anyway. We're going to see a Perseus Big Show. This is good because even though we're going to be grabbing something, we're not grabbing it out of the deck. So this does give us the position to be able to just say, hey, you know, let's see what our next couple draws are. This is pretty good. And then we can swing in with the Dracula if we feel like it, or again, he can just play setup and do the Fox effect here, banishing a green, a black, and a stone. He won't gain life because Darktree says neither player can gain life, but he does get to force his opponent to lose 1 life, and then gets to go get a Griffin from the sideboard. So we get to go get Griffin here. Griffin gets us those 2 stones. We have no way to stop it because, once again, thanks to the beauty that is setting the Stage of Providence. We do hit a Ragnarok stone there, which is a little unfortunate because it doesn't really matter now that we flipped Fox. But still, it is another 5-color stone that doesn't require us to get will. And the idea being, I imagine that Paul is also playing Blessings of Yggdrasil for the similar kind of reason, where you do it to get Ragnarok stone so that the next turn you can call stone, have a better chance of hitting a killing stone, and then flip. And then we're probably just going to see a pass here. It's going to bring back the Dracula to be able to block the Tisiphone. Essentially, the Dracula can block the Tisiphone infinitely, or it does give us the option to be able to go into an Amit since we have that killing stone. So yeah, the Dracula gets to come back here, has the 2 +1/+1 counters, and then we get to go into the Darktree turn. Calling stone. Recognizing that he doesn't have to call stone. I will say, though, just for your own sake of mind, that Ragnarok says you may. So if you choose, as far as I remember, if you choose to tap to call stone, you've tapped to call stone. Well done. So just keep that in mind in a tournament. Not that I don't think anyone in a Force Will event would do that to you, but keep that in mind. So we do have a 3,000 Tisiphone on the field, but we do have a Chimera, and so kind of the idea in this matchup does seem like it's probably going to be Wind Servant of Ragnarok coming down here. Does produce him another will of any color. This is again that idea of a 1-card Chimera, right? So it produces him some will that he could then use to play another 1-drop and set up a Chimera, so he can get a Chimera off of just 1 stone. In response to the cast, we're going to see a Dante enters the Game of Gods, paying 15. Again, Darktree doesn't really care about its life total, so it's okay paying that 1,500, go down to 21. Draw some cards and see if we can maybe draw into an answer, and does seem like we hit it there. We see the Pharaoh spell for the Wind Servant of Ragnarok. So canceling that card that has Quick Cast, and then we're going back to Tisiphone trying to attack. I do think that there's a world where you block with the Dracula here, and that if he has a follow-up to try to kill the Dracula, you then go into Fox. Ultimately, though, it does seem like Paul is being a little bit proactive with that Fox, unless I'm incorrect about Tisiphone not having a symbol skill. Let me double check. So we're probably going to see an Amit come down here, which is just going to go ahead and be the Chimera that will kill the Tisiphone outright, which feels pretty good. Oh, she does have Pierce. So, yes, okay, that would make sense as to why we're going to Amit now. I forgot that she has Pierce. That makes sense with the fact that she becomes a 30-30. So, Amit would kill her, and it would gain, again, it would gain Paul 3,000 life, but you can't gain life with Darktrees on the field. So, as I was saying before, the kind of idea here in this matchup would be to set up a board state and probably go for, like, Black Witch into Pumpkin Witch, so that you have a very aggressive board to burn through all of Darktree's hand or deck in one spot, and then go from there. Ultimately, it's a little bit tricky because green Fox doesn't have a ton of instant speed burn, so it has to be careful about hopefully hitting all of the ways for Darktree to be able to recycle its deck back into itself. Or just accepting that we're just going to recycle Killing Stones while having an incredibly protected game plan until we can finally drain Darktree to death. 21 Fox activations, I think we can do it. We do see a cast of Asmodeus, Castle of Asmodeus, so gets to pump all of his dudes +2/+2. This is another one of the cards that, you know, when milled, gets just to cheat right into the field, which is pretty cool. Another one being Velsevarian Apparition, which I imagine we might see here off the Darktree as well. Paying 2, we're going to go ahead and go for a Perseus Big Show. We need to set up what our hands are. We also can go ahead and use Fox before recovery to get that Killing Stone back into the Stone deck, which I imagine we will see as well here. Yep, getting that Killing Stone shuffled back into the deck so we can reuse it as much as possible. Darktree's plan here is to try to take advantage of any way to be able to hurt itself, or if Paul was playing a little bit looser, Paul's damage to probably seemingly accelerate with an aggression plan with things like Tisiphone, making Tisiphone bigger off of the additions, any kind of Velsevarians, like a lot of stuff that's going to mill. He seems to be more focused on that. We've also seen Darktree try to play to the 12 Olympian strategy. Overall, I think they both have merits, so it's kind of cool to see exactly how they would play out. I don't think you play against them any different. It's just like what their end game is, whether it be Olympians or whether it be like Tisiphone aggro or Velsevarian board, like this huge board. Paul here choosing to cast part of True Power, sacrificing the Dracula. So again, going to come back at the end of the turn to get a Griffin. And get 2 more stones. Again, 1-card Griffin, right? We saw this play in part of True Power came out alongside the reprint of Griffin, so it's not particularly surprising to see Fox also taking advantage of this situation, especially since Fox himself cannot grab chimeras from the graveyard. There's an interesting kind of line where if you use Rezard, the true doctor from Ataractia, or Ataractia's leading doctor, you can use a Griffin or you can use a Chimera to make itself, but it's a little bit complicated. You'll notice again, Paul is tapping for stone here because Ragnarok only stops your ruler from having to tap for stone. And then there's Paul's favorite card. Paul's favorite card is Magic Stone Research Institute. Gets to sack off a stone that's little importance, potentially draw him into another Killing Stone. And again, now he's got 4 unique stones, so all of his dudes are +8/+8. So we're getting very close to a board state where Paul is going to be able to push through enough damage in 1 turn to force Darktree to be at 0 cards. Darktree staring down quite a bit of damage here. Goes for a Essence of Athena's power to move the stuff from his graveyard back into the deck. We're going to see a Garion cancel in response from Paul because it is a 1-drop. I'm wondering what moving stuff to the RFG would do for him right now. I think maybe there's a Rezard, you know, a 2-drop Rezard in hand that we could see. Also just, oh yeah, okay, so he says, no, I've got a second one. I want this to resolve, please. Let's get everything removed from the game. I mentioned we might see a 2-drop Rezard come down pretty quickly, or something of that nature. Paul's doing a really good job here in not being the aggressor, so that Darktree has to not only burn its own life, but also has to not have as much access to its dark its corrupted cards. See a little bit of hemming and hawing about what this play is going to be, but ultimately it looks like we see a Light of Raisin Revive to target the Tisiphone. It looks like we're trying to bring back Tisiphone and say, look, you only have 1 stone. You are trying to... You've already used quite a few cards. I want to get my deck milled. Please and thank you. It is a little bit of a risky play, I think. Paul extending the handshake because I don't think he understands what Tisiphone does. And then the fact that it doesn't, yeah, he forgets that it doesn't, the tree doesn't take damage. So Tisiphone's going to mill him 30 cards. And it's a little bit of a risk, I think, because of the fact that Paul is representing so much damage that he's kind of doing a lot of Paul's work for him. Like, Paul should honestly swing in this next turn. Because the Dracula right now is at 1818, and the he's dealing 3,800, and we've already seen quite a few cards, and here's another 30. So there's enough damage there to get down to 0 cards. So now we're just seeing exactly what's getting milled off the top. Oh, I did see an Umir getting milled off the top. That's a very cool idea. He can get played from the RFG, so you can make use of that card. Did see at least 2 Allosaurus's. Castle of Asmodeus gets to come into play there. There's our first Velsevarian Apposition, so a nice little 2-drop 4/4. At this point in time, it's a 2-drop 8/8. Ultimately, kind of a not that great of a mill, but you could definitely see how, you know, if Paul can't lethal him, or if Darktree has a way to be able to survive, that if he does swing, we're probably hitting 3 more Velsevarian Apparitions, and probably at least 1 more Castle of Asmodeus. And so then suddenly the Crackback would practically be lethal, because you'd have 4 copies of 4 12/12s, plus Tisiphone with Pierce. And Tisiphone herself is already dealing 3,800 damage at that point because of the castles. So you have a lot of aggression. I do think that this is a play that seems a little bit proactive, especially since Light of Raisin Revive can be used in the end step or during Paul's turn, waiting to see exactly what Paul does and then using Raisin Revive. Although I understand that opens the risk of, oh, he's going to draw more cards. We do attempt to see a Black Witch of the Fallen Kingdom here in the upkeep to try to go get that pumpkin, which I would imagine. And I imagine this probably gets canceled if it's possible, because having Fox with a cloud effect of the turn of being swiftness certainly means that we're going to push through for lethal this turn, because everything's going to be able to swing. We can sacrifice for a Chimera. That Chimera can swing. You can do a lot of really gross stuff, especially since he could swing and then before it's at, like, count the cards in the deck, swing so that he stops just short of cards in the deck, make a Manticore, peep the hand to see if there's any way to stop the play, and then swing in the rest of the way. So we're going to swing in for a total of 18 damage here. That is going to hit the entire rest of the deck, which feels a little risky on Paul's part. I think I would have probably gone for the Dracula hit first, because again, I definitely would have counted the number of cards in deck, especially now that it seems like that hand is Velsevarian Apparitions. The swinging with the Dracula to stop short, using the Dracula and the Amit to make a Manticore, and then finishing the job with Griffin feels like it would have been the better, like, safer play line, because there is an Allosaurus being revealed here in the main end step, or in the before the draw phase on his turn. One thing to keep note of here is that a Manticore here technically doesn't stop this, because you just respond to the Manticore by using the effect again. The question is, does Paul's opponent know that? But Paul was certainly in a winning game state there without the with just the Dracula. The Dracula and the Griffin was lethal, especially since his opponent was completely tapped out. Even going even further with a Prisia, yeah, absolutely had the way to be able to make everything needed here. So we go Prisia, who gets us a 1-drop. I think at this point he's a potential 2-drop. Probably going to grab something like Mikage Raya. Yep, exactly that. There's Mikage Raya. I'm not sure exactly what he's milling here. There's nothing really engraved to mill that helps us, except, I guess, a part of True Power, even though we're trying to end the game. And then we're probably going to see a Manticore. This is a play error, though, because if his opponent lets it resolves and concedes and accepts the Griffin grab, or the Manticore grab, because, again, in response to this effect, you can just reveal Allosaurus again, because it's a 0 cost. 0 cost and reveal this card, so you can just reveal it as many times as you want, and he would still get the Allosaurus to the top of the deck, which is, you know, a problem. So the line should have been, now that we know that, you know, we know he had the Prisia, we know he had these swings and hit the lethal. The line is get him short, steal the Allosaurus out of his hand, then finish the game off. Unless at that point in time he had 2 Allosauruses, you know, you're in fine shape and you don't go where you're not getting infinited out of the game. But it does seem like his opponent doesn't realize that, so he's just going to let the discard happen, and at that point Darktree has decked out, and Paul is the winner of that game. So we go on to game 2. So in game 2 here, there's nothing much about that game plan for Darktree that changes. There's nothing much about that game plan for Blue Tree that changes. It's just about, at this point in time, it's about execution, right? Both decks, Paul's showcasing exactly what happens when you are respecting the engine of Darktree, and Darktree showing what happens if you do go in or give them the chance to go off, because especially with that, you know, Tisiphone, if that Tisiphone had gone off the first time, we would have seen a very, very aggressive start, and going wide against Fox can be very, very good. So here we see a Call Stone into Wind Servant directly into Dracula. So he turned 1 stone into 2 bodies, set himself up for a next turn Fox flip. The problem is we don't have a Killing Stone. We do have Energize, though, which is interesting that Darktree gave the Energize to Fox. Not knowing necessarily what's in the deck, though. Maybe the thought is, you know, having more turns. Paul does choose to call Stone there, so not playing Blessings of Yggdrasil currently. Does play Magic Stone Research Institute. Does have to pay 200 life to go down to that, though. Hopefully he catches that self. There he goes. Goes down to 36. Doesn't hit another Killing Stone, though, which is a little unfortunate. So we do see an end step Phantasmal Ascendant for Darktree, hoping to hit that Ragnarok's Fiery Stone. Or, no, I think you'd hope to hit not a fiery Ragnarok's Fiery Stone, right? Because it would go away. And succeeding at that point in time, it is going to get to draw another card with that Magic Stone of Reincarnation. Not another Darkness Stone, though. We certainly really wanted to see it. We can call another stone here and hopefully see a Magic Stone of Reincarnation. We could also see potential for another Blessings of Yggdrasil to go get Magic Stone of we could use the 2 green stones here to play Blessings of Yggdrasil, get a Ragnarok Stone, call Stone, use the other stone and the Moonshade to play for a Tisiphone and push in. We are staring down a couple of will here from Fox. Oh, looks like that's exactly what we're going to do. So Blessing gives Yggdrasil here at least to go get us this Ragnarok Stone. Does come into play tapped. We do have the option to be able to call Stone here and potentially tap ourselves out for Tisiphone to see if that resolves. It could be potentially a very, very big play. Doesn't. Completely misses, just regularly calling Stone. And then, but he does get to draw a card. So, a little bit of an unfortunate misplay there. Hit the Ragnarok Stone off the Blessing and then just didn't call Stone. really, really unfortunate misplay there. Wondering why that is. And there we do see Paul go for the Blessing of Yggdrasil. So Paul is also playing them, it seems. Gets ourselves a Killing Stone into play tapped, but we do not care because we are going to probably turn that 1 Killing Stone into 2 Recovered Stones off of a Griffin, especially since we do have access to a green-black Energize here, which can protect us from the 1 will that we might be seeing. A little bit of a misexecution on Paul's part that we didn't swing in with the Flying Dracula first, just to get some... but also... I'm thinking, and even I'm catching the fact that we don't want to be swinging too early because we don't want to fuel cards for a Dark Tree. So we're just going to go ahead and do some life loss, hit a Griffin, get a couple extra stones, see a Ragstone and a Moonshade. This works well enough for us because we have access to the Energize. Dracula gets to come back into play, and we do see another end step Phantasmal Ascendant, hitting us a Black Silence Stone. Working off 5 will to 1 will certainly makes me feel like we're going to see a Tisiphone come down here and be able to be protected, but we don't know the hand of Dark Tree here. Certainly you could see some setup to support these creatures. I do think at a certain point you do kind of have to start swinging in. We do see the darkness paying for that incorrectly. Attendant of Asmodeus does cost double black. Hopefully they catch that with the stones here in just a second. Does not seem to be the case. So a little bit of missed will there. He should have had to use the Ragnarok Stone instead of the Reincarnation Stone. Stone goes away. Do see a Killing Stone get shuffled back in at the beginning of Paul's turn. Need a Killing Stone here to be able to start making any kind of real plays. And does not see it. But he is on 4 unique stones, so all of his guys are +8/+8. Again, though, you don't want to swing in right now. You just want to form a defensive wall and a reactionary wall because you really do just want to one-shot Dark Tree. Another Moonshade coming down here. Dante enters the Game of Gods. Paying 2, go down to 33. And then do we see something to try to stop it? We do see a number 13 come down here for 1 green. Looks like we're potentially going to do a Cancel War. We see a Fairer spell to cancel the number 13. We respond to that with a Setting the Stage of Providence, which doesn't cancel, but it gives all of his spells on the Chase barrier. And so the question is, does that resolve? Because it does seem like Dark Tree really needs some cards in hand here. And we see, oh, we see a 2 green, so paying 4 down to 29 for a Wind of Zeus to remove that spell from the Chase. So the Setting the Stage of Providence gets removed. We do get to finally draw some cards here. Does leave us with only 1 will, though, staring down a pretty open-fielded Fox here, especially if he's able to call a stone to get a Killing Stone here. We're at a point right now where if it wasn't for that Research Institute, I would say we're not terribly concerned about getting decked out right now. But because of the fact also that Paul is at 5 stones, we will probably see that before Recovery Dark Witch to go get Pumpkin Witch. And at that point in time, we're in a real bad way because then everything's gonna have flying, and then Paul can do that hand manipulation. Then again, if I'm Paul, I'm not going to go for that hand manipulation unless I get a Killing Stone. And at this point in time, I believe there's only 1 stone in his stone deck that's not Killing Stone, so it seems pretty likely that we're going to see one. But at that point in time, we're definitely going to go for that hand manipulation to try to set up for the lethal. Dark Tree really wanting to have double Allosaurus in hand right now. I do see that last will tap out to go ahead and use Essence of Athena's power. To get rid of the graveyard. Down comes Prisia here in the recovery. I imagine this Prisia is then going to cast us into a Dark Witch to try to go in for the aggression, to try to push through for lethal. Well, we'll see. Draw for turn. And no Prisia before recovery. Interesting take. Oh, we just have the Dark Witch in hand. So Dark Witch coming down by itself, so now it's nice and protected from the 0 will available to Dark Tree. Gonna go get us a Pumpkin Witch out of the sideboard. You could use it to grab another Black Witch, but I think in an era of Zeus, that gets a little greedy to try to put more Black Witches in the sideboard because of how good Black Witch is in the main board right now. So Pumpkin Witch comes down. Prisia Big Show's still after that, now that we know that that's resolved, although I'm not sure what we're going to be drawing cards for. You need to hit that Killing Stone, though, for this play to be anything other than risky. And there we go. Immediately safe. So again, this is the same line that I would say before, especially since we have Pumpkin Witch. Like, you just swing with Pumpkin Witch, swing with Black Witch, play the Prisia and swing with that as well, because none of that's going to be enough to be able to set him down to 0 cards. Use those cards to be able to then make another Manticore, steal whatever might be in his hand, whatever Allosaurus might be in his hand, hoping that it's just one, and then if it is just one, you swing in for lethal, and that's the end of the game. But we'll see exactly if Paul sees that line, or if he's going to try to bank on the fact that his Dark Tree opponent doesn't quite necessarily realize exactly how the Allosaurus ability works. Everything's plus a grand right now, though, which is huge because he has 5 different stones. So that's 22 damage. So it's 22 cards milled. Essentially seeing if we're waiting to see how many potential it's Castle of Asmodeus or apparitions of Velsavaria come up, although at this point in time it doesn't super matter. So we've got 3 castles here. Dracula gets to swing in for 16. Seeing if there's any other hits there. Does look like they are all in the bottom half of the deck. We do see one Velsavarian apparition come into play. Paul checking the card total here. So 9 cards left at this point. So even Black Witch is the other damage needed because of the swiftness. It's just going to hit the rest of the deck. We do see all of the Velsavarian apparitions come into play. So there they all were, very close to the bottom of the deck. And then the question is there Allosaurus? Or is there more than one Allosaurus? Again, I still think you do it right now, just to peek. But I'm not Paul, and this is in the past, so I can't change exactly how that's going to work. We do see that Allosaurus here. And then we're going to see a wind. This is just a flashy way to go into a Manticore. Goes into the Manticore and his opponent still doesn't quite recognize. exactly the way that the reveal effect works, so we are going to get that Manticore, rip the Allosaurus out of the hand. Can't draw a card for turn, he's X out, and that is the game. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will have the deck profile for Blue Fox up later this week, as well as try to get the Dark Tree deck profile to you as soon as we can, if we can get in touch with the player. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and be sure to get in those pre-orders with for Hero Cluster with Odyssey Games. You can check the link in the description, as well as get signed up for FalFest in November. But this has been myself, DeMeulle73, and until next time, class dismissed.